for incompetence and mediocrity in government. I say BS to that. Those days are over. How about we put somebody there that has some executional competence, that set goals and gets targets done? The definition of great leadership is finding great people and asking them to do extraordinary things for you. That's how a government should be run. This country should be richer than Switzerland. It has way more bounty. It's just really poorly managed. Trudeau talks about diversity in his cabinet and his caucus. That's good. Nothing wrong with that. Never use the word competency. I'm all for diversity if you can do the job. But the definition of competency is actually having a track record of executional skills. I do not tolerate mediocrity or incompetence in what I do. I find great people to do great things for me in business and in everything I touch. You may be surprised to hear this, but Alex Kenji, the man that runs O'Leary Ventures, is a card-carrying liberal, and he works for me. I have the only intelligent liberal in the country working for me. And I hire him because he's smart and he gets stuff done. That's what you have to do in government. Now, before I sit down and start answering questions, I just want to give you the path to how we're going to take back the government and Conservatives will become majority mandate again. I'm a numbers guy, you know that. Let me give you the math. I did the work. When Harper got his first majority mandate, there were over 320,000 members of the Conservative Party, strong and proud. In the second majority mandate, he got the same number of votes. But here's what happened. Trudeau was very smart on this. He basically spent 15 months crisscrossing the country, going to colleges and university and technical school campuses, anywhere where young people were. And he did something that's never been done in Canadian politics before. He motivated people between the ages of 18 to 35 to vote. To vote. And 82% of them voted for him. That changed Canadian politics forever. If they stay motivated, and believe me, they are, no party can ever get a majority mandate again without winning at least 60% of those voters. Now, there hasn't been a Conservative candidate in 15 years that ever got on a campus anywhere here in any Canadian university and wasn't thrown stones at. That has to change. Now, here's the good news. We were just experimenting with this, but a couple of weeks ago when I was campaigning out in Vancouver, we said, let's see if we can sneak into a pub at 11 o'clock at night and see if anybody will talk to me. Let's just see what happens. We'll tell the manager we're coming and ask to talk to 14 or 15 pub goers, just the students, to try and do some social media with them. So what happens? We call ahead. When we get there, almost 20 minutes late, 11:20, sold out. 350 students packed into that pub. Doors closed. Another 120 sitting outside that wanted to get in. So I did two presentations. The guys outside in line, and the men and women inside. And guess what I found out? They're really pissed. What a huge opportunity to claw back this base from Trudeau. He lied to them. He promised them jobs, and they're pissed. They don't like being lied to. They want the truth. They want a politician that tells them the good, the bad, and the ugly, not the spin, the truth. And they'd like to get a job while they're alive. They'd like to move out of their parents' basement. What I'm going to be doing after I win this leadership race is going across the country, clawing them back one at a time over the next 2 years. So when he comes back in 2019 for that election, they'll be gone. They'll be with us. It won't be an election. It'll be an exorcism in 2019. I will cast aside the malaise of Trudeau. and change all of his policies, because he has been brutal to this economy in Alberta. Imagine him saying to a crowd out east, oh yeah, we're going to phase out the oil sands. 250,000 high-paying jobs. New idea. Let's phase out Justin Trudeau. It's time to get grilled by Tim. I'm going to sit down. Let's get at her. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the only candidate that can win in 2019, right here. Thank you, Kevin. Okay, so let's start with the obvious. You know, there's a full party debate happening just across the street. Why are we here and not over there?
Really? I didn't know about that. It's not a debate, Tim. It's a series of 10-second sound bites. And the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and anticipating a different outcome. We are not servicing the party with this. I've done 2 of them, and Preston Manning, who should be considered the grandfather of a Conservative Party, saw the disaster in Halifax. I was there. Saw a worse disaster in Montreal when 14 of us were on stage. Much worse, because we had a rogue moderator who took about 40% of the time for himself. I guess he was running for something. It was an absolute disaster. Preston said, we're not going to do that at the Manning debates, which were last Friday. He said, we'll draw straws, break the groups up into 4 and 3, and have substantive debates, which we had. And each candidate had an opportunity to address the membership about their vision and their ideas for the country. Now that made sense. Now, if you're a leader and you understand you have to make tough decisions, you go into action. So I asked the party through my own campaign team, let's solicit all the other campaigns to see if we all shouldn't do the same. My anticipation was they would go with a majority. They didn't. They said you have to win over every single one of them. And maybe 1 or 2 didn't agree, so they went back to the insanity that's happening next door. 10-second sound bites. It's unfair to the candidates. It's unfair to you. It's unfair to Canada because we can't communicate. We can't get our ideas out. Will I participate with 14 people on stage in any language? French, English, or Swahili? No, because it's not a debate. It's a 10-second soundbite. So if it happens again, I won't do it either. I'll do exactly the same thing. Address the issues with the members, and I know some of you have driven long hours to get here. You deserve content, not sound bites, not candidates saying, go to my website, go to my website, go to my website. And I know this is a long answer. I just want to add one other element to it. I am hoping that many of the candidates will thank me, because if you do the math, and you know I'm a numbers guy, they're only allowed 60 seconds to answer, but I'm not there anymore. So that leaves each an extra 4.6 seconds. That means Kelly can probably get on her website again. She should thank me for that. And Lisa. You know, when I meet them at my hospitality suite, and you're all invited too, I hope they thank me. It's a gift.
Very good. Thank you very much, Kevin. Thank you for having this discussion. This is great. So, you know, you told us a little bit about why you wanted to get into the leadership race and why you want to be Prime Minister. What would be your top 3 priorities as a leader of the Conservative Party of Canada?
Now that is a good question. So I would have thought, and I'll answer it just through what I thought would happen. My expectation was when Trudeau saw the surprise election of Donald Trump, that he would have pivoted. He would have said, wait a second. I am not going to implement the policies that I've charted. I'm going to wait to see what the U.S. does on personal and corporate tax, on the regulatory environment, on pipelines and shale, and on carbon taxes, because we don't need the lowest taxes in Canada. We need to be competitive. That's what matters the most, is to be competitive. But no, he just kept going. So the biggest challenge I've got is twofold. We need to immediately find the balance between the U.S., Canada, and Mexico in North American competitiveness so we can attract capital. Because obviously, if our taxes are significantly higher, and as we speak, Trump is addressing, and perhaps the specifics of his tax plan, which he plans to implement in the next 12 months, we're going to be in a horrible situation. Our provincial taxes are too high, our corporate taxes are too high, and we have a carbon tax that no one else in North America has. That's terrible. I have to repeal all of that. So I have to get to Ottawa and erase all that and find the status the equilibrium where we're competitive. That's the first thing. I also have to figure out a way to get rid of incompetence at the provincial level, because my biggest challenge is I am making I'm making a promise to Canadians that I can grow the economy at 3%. Canada works at 3%. Healthcare works, education works, military spending works. It all works at 3%. Does not work at 0.7. The squabbling you saw in the transfer payments around healthcare in the last few weeks is a result of being at 7% GDP growth. The kitchen is bare. So, in order to make it work, there are two giant pistons of growth in this country. We're sitting in one of them right here, Alberta. If you look at the transfer payments over the last 40 years, without Alberta, there wouldn't be the Canada you know, and you know damn well that's the truth. That's a fact. Now, the problem I've got, and I try to be very careful and I choose my words, but let me say it this way. Rachel Notley. Now, if she'd worked for me in any of my companies, I would have fired her a long time ago, because look, I know these are harsh words, but it doesn't detract from the fact that it's the truth. She is a toxic cocktail of mediocrity and incompetence blended into one drink. And it's toxic for the economy. It's brutal. My story is very simple. I work in the sovereign fund market. I create indices for sovereign capital all around the world. That's what I do. I travel to Geneva, to Zurich, to London, to New York, working with FTSE Russell, designing indices. In Canada, I want you to make you aware of this. If you're a sovereign fund in Zurich running, let's say, $500 billion, generally you'd put 15 to 18% of that into energy. And you do it globally. And you'd allocate that percentage by GDP. So in other words, if Canada's 2.8% of GDP, you would take 2.8% of 15 of 500 billion, and you would buy the most liquid Canadian energy stocks, and that would be your Canadian portfolio. Now, I wasn't there when this happened. This happened a couple of years ago, but I heard about it sitting in the makeup chair about to go on to a global program called CNBC Closing Bell, talking about sovereign allocations. You should hear this story because you can't make this stuff up. And I'm sitting beside a Zurich-based, or I can't remember whether he was London, but he was a sovereign manager, and he said, I just left a meeting from somebody called Rachel Notley. I didn't even know who Rachel Notley was. When the price of oil tanked in the past in previous governments in Alberta, generally the policy of the government would be to accelerate capital cost allowance to attract capital to the province during the down period to keep people working and keep everything stable until we waited for the commodity came up. The government would give relief and then bring back the royalties later when things were good. That makes sense. What does she do? She goes into a room this size with $1 trillion in it, with everybody expecting to hear about the acceleration of capital cost allowance, in other words, making Alberta more attractive. They wanted to hear the deal. And the first thing she says is, I'm raising corporate taxes 10%. The price of oil is collapsing. It's under $30 at this point. Everybody's saying, what? And then she says, oh, by the way, I'm reviewing royalty rates on existing production in Alberta. They didn't even wait to listen to her finish. They were selling stock by the billions of dollars walking out of the room. This guy took his whole portfolio to zero and invested in Texas shale debt instead. So my biggest job is to normalize the federal government policy on energy, get somebody better than Rachel Notley running this place, maybe a new person, right? Just by the time I show up in 2019, maybe an election in 2018, that would be really good. And then go back to Mumbai, to Zurich, to London, to New York, and say, where I work every day, Canada is open for business again. Give me back my 2.8% allocation. Come invest with us because we're going to be the most competitive place on earth to do business in energy. I will bring this province billions of dollars and create jobs I'm going to make it competitive so that that sovereign money wants to be here, wants to be here. I know how to speak their language, I know what we have to do in policy, and I can read a balance sheet and an income statement. That's the plan for Alberta.
Thank you, Kevin. And just further to that, like you said, Justin Trudeau's already said he wants to phase out the oil sands. Rachel Notley has us under this job-killing carbon tax. How would you balance the need to have responsible resource development and to respect our environment at the same time?
That is a good question, and that's what I get from millennials when I'm sitting in pubs and in amphitheaters and colleges. Here's the answer. I graduated environmental studies in 1977, one of the first cohorts from the University of Waterloo in my undergraduate, under a woman named Sally Lerner, who is now a legend. Back then, 35 years ahead of her time, she said the definition of leadership in my lifetime, and she said it to all the graduates, would be someone that could balance the needs of an economy and its people and that stewardship of the environment for future generations. It's a very difficult challenge. Now, here's why trying to price carbon doesn't work. Here's why cap and trade doesn't work. Here's why it doesn't work. Let's say you've got two companies. One's young and innovative, doesn't have a big balance sheet, it's just raised some venture money, and is pinching pennies to stay alive. And right beside it is a massive company with 15 smokestacks polluting like hell. They don't have to stop polluting. They simply go to their balance sheet and buy carbon credits. How stupid is that? You want to basically get everybody innovating with new technologies. A better strategy is not to extract capital from any company on a carbon tax. It's to simply say to the industry, what can you do for us as a people of Canada? What can you do for us in Alberta to reduce emissions over the next 30 years? What target will you give? We will not extract $1 from your balance sheet. We expect you to innovate. Tell us what you can do and stick with your promise. But you keep the money, you create the jobs, you provide the innovation. But one other thing. As your Prime Minister, I want the ability to put a salesman in every embassy Canada has in countries that are challenged by emissions. And I want to be able to sell your technology to the Indians, the Chinese, and the Asian markets. Because when it comes to carbon sequestration and new advanced technologies, some of the best on earth is developed right here in Alberta. Why aren't we selling them? But there'll be no carbon tax. And I'm also going on the record that any province or premier that penalizes their economy with a carbon tax, I will simply deduct it from their transfer payments. Don't mess with me.
Okay, thank you. Just going back to the party itself, you've said that you want to grow the party, grow the base of the party. You said up to 40%, and that would bring in younger people, and so that would also bring in people sometimes with more progressive views. And where would people like myself that have more socially conservative views fit into all that?
Well, let's start about who I am so you'll understand how I think about this. I am the son of a Lebanese and Irish immigrant that came through Halifax in the 40s. So if we didn't have an all-inclusive country, I wouldn't be sitting here in front of you. I grew up with a Lebanese grandmother who couldn't speak any French or English, but she loved apples because she was from a place in Beirut called Hispaya where they make some of the best apples in the Mediterranean. Her whole life she dreamt to have an apple orchard. And when she moved to Montreal, her husband started a company called Kitty's Togs on Jean Talon. The whole grandmother who wanted her dream apples. She really knew how to grow apples. And I know this because she made my brother and I work every weekend for nothing picking apples. How I abhor doing that, I have to tell you. But now I realize in our culture, the matriarch always prepares the Sunday dinner, and Lebanese food takes a long time to make. So she would start at 5 in the morning, and everybody had to show up at St. Adele at 6. If you didn't show up for dinner there, you burned in hell in perpetuity. Now, how much I miss that, because those are family values. In this country, the whole idea is to have an environment the government provides to let families like that come here, grow families, grow businesses, and be happy in their beliefs. I don't care what religion you are, or whether you're pro-life or pro-choice. That's your own business. Our whole way of life here, our party, is about encompassing many beliefs, endorsing them, and letting you have yours. That's the key. Whatever you believe, that's yours. That's your business. We don't mandate morality. That's for you and your family and your beliefs. That's how we're going to grow this party base. It's for everybody in every age. Now, my challenge, and I mentioned this earlier in my opening remarks, is I have a 24-year-old daughter who I need to get to vote for me. And I want you to know something. When I announced this, she said, "Dad, I want you to know something. If you don't give me what I want and my generation, I will openly campaign against you." Now, normally I would say, well, I won't tell you what I would say. But unfortunately, this is a very powerful young woman. She runs social media for the Huffington Post. She's not screwing around. And in order for me to win her back, there's certain things we have to provide these young people, particularly my daughter. LGBTQI, she believes deeply in that, and so do I. We're going to have to do that for her. She is pro-choice, and she does not ever want that taken away from her. And I said to her, there are people in our party that are pro-life. Can you live beside them? And yes, she can. But she has to know I have her back. I have to win her back. I have to win my son back. I have to win millions of people that age back. That's the only way our party is going to become the party for all Canadians, and we're going to win a majority mandate. So I want you to understand where I come from. I'm an immigrant. We're not going to change our laws. We're not going to build any walls. But I'm not for, I'm definitely for immigration, or I wouldn't be here, but I don't want illegal immigration either. These images of people trudging across the snow into the country, we don't know who they are, I'm not cool with that. We've got to have a process. So if you want to grow a family, this is your place, but you're going to do it by our immigration laws. And on that topic, I've been getting lots of phone calls. As you know, I'm well known in the United States. But senators, CEOs of tech companies are saying to me off the record, "Listen, Kevin, I'd like to hire some Persian, Iraqi, Iranian, Syrian coders, but they won't move because they're worried about the instability of immigration policy, and they want to know if they move their families, they're not going to get kicked out of the country. Would you consider if we spent the money to build a coding center in a place like Calgary near a university? We pay for it, we provide the jobs, these are good jobs, 65,000 to 150,000 of just coding. Would you give them a passport and their wives and their kids, the immediate family, so they could live and feel safe in Canada?" And I'm saying, wait a minute, you're going to build the facility, you're going to pay the salaries, I'm going to get to tax them, and they're going to work in Canada because they're citizens? Done deal. As long as they go through our vetting process. But that's immigration that creates wealth for everybody, including them. That's happening. We could make this country more competitive than India in the next generation of wealth, which is computer programming and artificial intelligence. Let's do it, because we're going to be a place where many of these people want to move to, as long as their wives get to stay with their children. That's our deal. I'm going to implement that policy on a fast-track basis. If you get a job, you're already ready, and you're a coder, this is your home. These are fantastic jobs and great taxpayers.
Thank you, Kevin. So you've heard some of the criticism of you that you don't have that political experience, that you don't have the political experience to be the leader of this party. What do you say to that?
That's a feature, not a bug. The fact, I'm not a politician. I don't owe anybody anything. No favors owed to anybody. Don't owe anybody any money. I'm going to go into caucus. We've got some great men and women in the Conservative Party. Stellar. My job is to find the right files for them and build a team, put out definitely some targets, that we're going to achieve. Remember, we're all pulling for 3% GDP growth. Every time a politician opens their mouth and doesn't create a job, they're wasting oxygen. That's the way I look at it. So that's the focus we're going to have. We're going to work at the federal level with a great team. The files that I'm most interested in getting my hands dirty in: finance, trade, and military procurement. These I will personally get involved in because they are huge files. I'll give you an example. I just went through the budget. We spend $20 billion a year operating our military for really good men and women who risk their lives for us. We have the largest border on Earth, the largest border. We patrol it. I'm a bit of a not military, but aircraft buff. We use C-140 aircraft. Those are twin turboprop planes to monitor our borders at an operating cost of $38,500 an hour. That's insane. We can get a drone to do it for $800 an hour. We'll be changing that, saving $2 billion. We'll give it back to the military to buy better equipment with. And that's just in an hour of looking at the income statement. I haven't even got to work on that yet. There's so many opportunities. You got to bring some executional business skills into government. We don't have any of it now, and we're paying a terrible price. You got to work with the numbers. You got to understand what you're dealing with here. My promise to all of you in this room is no more stupid deals. I'm going to invest our money as if it was mine because it is. I'm a taxpayer because it's yours. I'll invest it as if it was mine. We will not piss it away.
Thank you, Kevin. It's absolutely refreshing to hear some of these new ideas. I want to hand it over to the audience now. Let's
please.
We have the mics here. We'll give our audience an opportunity to ask some questions as well.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Larry. It's refreshing to hear. And I'd like to first start by saying I ran against Ms. Notley. And it was nice to hear that you don't like her either. I didn't like her either.
It's not personal, it's just competency.
Well, mine was personal. And I think one of the things as well is the healthcare in our country is a mess.
Yeah.
And I think everyone has been too afraid to tackle it. And you know, my husband and I are done very well in our business, but we're ready to move to the States. We're ready to your opening remarks. We're tired of being hit every time because people seem to think if we've worked hard for our money, but we're done being hit every time with minimum wage going up, with corporate tax, with carbon tax, and Donald Trump's great. You know, we'll go down there. You know,
So, first of all,
healthcare.
okay.
We need to clean it up.
Well, before healthcare, wait 24 months. I'll fix all this for you.
I
don't want good people leaving the country because of tax. That's insane.
Yeah, and your program would be it's similar to the EB5 to bring great people from other countries to our country.
But
Awesome.
if you're paying more than half your income and all the taxes combined, that's just unfair, and we've got to break that back. I would like to see the total, anybody making less than, I'm working on these numbers, I have to actually look at the deficits it creates, but I don't mind creating deficits if it's leaving money in entrepreneurs' pockets, because then I generally get to accelerate economic growth. What I believe is happening in Canada now, 1/3 of every tax dollar is actually wasted. Look at Ontario. I mean, Kathleen Wynne is actually $308 billion in debt. We're the most in debt jurisdiction in North America. She keeps just pissing it away with stupid stuff, and that's got to end. But the point is, let's get to healthcare for a second. As you know, the Healthcare Act is a provincial mandate, but that doesn't mean I blow that off. If you read the act, remember a guy named Tommy Douglas wrote this, and when he wrote it, there was a clinic called Shouldice that was in operation. World legendary for hernia operations. The reason is they're one of the only places on earth that does not use mesh for a hernia. So what happens with mesh is 5% of patients reject the metal mesh that's holding their innards in. It's a nasty operation afterwards. Shouldice does 32 procedures a day for people all around the world. It operates within the Canada Healthcare Act, and it operates privately. It has its own jurisdiction. It's probably the essence of an opportunity for us to build similar models in every province. The key is to actually start considering how you can do these things to provide what we've been guaranteed as Canadians, a social net for catastrophic health, and we can't take that away. But also, I don't have a problem paying more if somebody were to charge me for that. I'm okay with it. Why should I wait longer than a dog for an MRI in this country? The truth is that most of the MRI machines here are only operating at 60% capacity. We got to solve that. So imagine Trudeau's giving away $4 billion to foreign countries, and a dog is getting an MRI before you do because we can't hire an operator. Well, that's not right. That's just wrong. That's bad management. We've got to do things like that. The healthcare file is complicated. I swear I'll work on it, but I got to work with the provinces. But I got to change a few premiers. There's some very weak management out there. I'm doing that now.
Thank you very much. It's, another question?
Peter Golding, former member of Parliament. Yeah, thank you for coming here, Kevin. I really do appreciate it. It's refreshing, believe me. My question is more related to work that we've been doing for the past 20 years, and that's with the Special Committee for Canadian Unity. It is a McGill University-based unity group. And my question is about the referendum that keeps popping up from time to time in Quebec, and how the NDP have put forth a policy of supporting a 50+1% vote for removal or for Quebec to be seceding from Canada. And the fact that the Clarity Act is very clear. It doesn't mention the passing percentage for it, but it does say that it shall be 13 times by the majority of the people of Quebec to secede. And that in itself gives that higher bar, because that's 13% of the majority of the people of Quebec, not just those who showed up to vote. And that's probably in keeping with your organization and all political organizations across the country, where they call for a 66% vote for majority change within their organization. What is your viewpoint on that? And Pierre Pallado came out very forcefully.
I'm well aware of these issues. I'm born in Montreal, as you know. Here's what I believe the solution for Quebec is. And I could say this as a native of Montreal. During the 60s and 70s, the economy was very corrupt in Quebec, probably the worst in Canada. The province has done a pretty good job in the last 12 years of cleaning it up. And there's a new constituency that nobody talks about in Montreal and in the underlying regions of Quebec, in Quebec City, and in Magog, and up in the Laurentians. The 18 to 35-year-old Quebecer now is a very entrepreneurial man and woman with more of a global view of the world. When I meet with them, it's a different constituency than I've ever met before. They want to compete, they want jobs, they want their province to be clean, they want a better tax regime so they can compete with businesses. There's a very positive vibe with that constituency that has nothing to do with separating. They want to be part of Canada, and these are francophones, the Quebecois. I mean, these are not, it's a new generation that many of us haven't connected with. They're the ones I'm appealing to. The solution to keep Quebec in Canada. And remember, we've been debating this as a country forever, but it also makes us unique. You got to remember, Quebec, is a founding province of the country. So talking about separating is unhealthy for all of us. It's better that we get that new generation saying, hell yes, I want to compete. Hell yes, I want a job. I want to succeed. I want to be successful. And work with that province. It's got some very high taxes there. Corporate taxes are low. My businesses are in Quebec because they have some of the lowest corporate taxes. Personal tax is too high. And so that's what I hear from. When I talk to young Quebecers, they're not talking about separating, they're talking about jobs. They want a job. They ask me, what can you do for me so that I can start a business here? What can you do for me? How can you help me start a business? Nobody's talking about separating. So I'm optimistic that I can go there, grow our base. We hardly have any seats there. We got to get to 2030. And that's a lot of work for me. I got to learn French and be much better at it. People keep saying to me, you can't speak French. C'est pas vrai, mon français. Devez mieux chaque jour. Who would you rather have negotiating with Trump? Think about it. And I say to myself, Trudeau or what?
So Kevin, if you grew up in Montreal, how is it that you don't speak French?
It's a good question. So, what happened was my original Irish dad died when he was 36, and my mother we were living in Montreal. I was about 8 years old, and I was pretty fluent, I was told, till then. She married an Egyptian who was studying at the University of Illinois at Champaign-Urbana. George became my stepfather. He joined the ILO, and for the rest of my teenage years, I moved to a new country every 2 years. So I've lived in Tunisia, Ethiopia, Cyprus, France, Switzerland, Hong Kong, you name it. I actually met Pol Pot in Cambodia, Phnom Penh, just before he started the Killing Fields campaign. I've met Haile Selassie in Addis Ababa and petted his lion cubs. I learned a lot about the world as a young man, and today I'm a global investor as a result of it. The only way I've determined, and this is a bit of a pivot to your question, is we're debating these issues around ethnic intolerance and cultural intolerance. The way you eliminate that from society is teach children at an early age about the diversity of cultures and different ethnic people. That's how you do it. You can't legislate out hatred. You have to teach people to have tolerance when they're young. That is one of my mandates for Education Canada, along with financial literacy at an early age. That's what we need. So, those are the two initiatives. I lived it. I mean, I've lived in cultures that are incredibly diverse. And, that's the world to me. I mean, I don't care what you wear, what religion you are. Most people, 99.9% of people in every country in the world I've been to, want to start a family and be successful in life. And that's what Canada's definition should be. So we should be tolerant, but boy, do we need some financial literacy. Whoa. I mean, that I'm going to fix. I'm going to start teaching kids about debt at the age of 5. That's what they got to learn. This is a credit card, and you don't like this thing. Like, that's going to be important.
Thank you. Another question?
There you go, it's me. Kevin, when you become the leader of the Conservative Party soon, what are the first 2 things you're going to do that we'll see? And when you become the Prime Minister, what are the first 2 things that we'll see?
Well, the first thing that will happen when I become the leader is I consider the caucus the board of directors. And so, I've served boards for my entire business life. And the way this should work is you want the best of what your board knows, but you've got to keep everybody together. Boards have very heated debates in a boardroom, but they're unified when they compete in the market. So the way I want to see the Conservative Party work is we'll make sausage in the boardroom together, because there's lots of debates going on. But when you see us outside, we're a unified party for the country. And every day we want to be signing new members into our party. And I've already talked to caucus about this, so I'm going to sit down and say, let's talk about what the next 2 years look like. What should I be doing as a leader? Should I be hitting every single college, university, and technical school campus? Or should I be barking at Trudeau every day in Ottawa? I'm thinking I should go get more people into the party so that when the election hits, he's screwed. He has no base left. That's the key. It's that 18 to 35-year-old. If I can win 65% majority mandate for all of us, then the hard work begins, repealing everything he's done. I'm hopeful they'll forget his name 90 days after I get
And then also, as Prime Minister, first thing you do once you get as Prime
Now, the key to, here's the plan for Prime Ministership. I'll probably have to spend about 1.5 years getting policies competitive with Mexico and the United States. Whatever we're looking at in 24 months, we've got to be competitive. Then I've got to get the right caucus people on the right files. The big ones for me that I'll be handpicking are finance, trade, and military procurement, because that's a big budget, and operations. But once I've got that done, I'm going back on the road to Geneva, New York, Hong Kong, Mumbai, where all the sovereign wealth is, to get back that allocation of capital back to Canada by saying to them, look, you know who I am, because they do know who I am, and all the Americans know who I am, which is a unique attribute. I'm spending a lot of my time on American networks because they're calling me up saying, Listen, Kevin, Americans know you, and now we want to talk to you about trade policy with Canada and immigration policy with Canada. Can you come down here, Good Morning America, NBC, ABC, and I'm telling Americans, look, you know me, but here's something you don't know about Canada. For example, we're the largest trading partner in 35 states. You've got. We're responsible as Canadians for 9.5 million jobs. Did you know that? No, they don't. You can't just tax us at the border. An auto chassis goes over the border from Michigan to Ontario 7 times before it's finished. You can't tax it, so there's an exception. You want your housing to go up 30% in California? Tax our softwood lumber. That's what will happen. Can't do that either. You want XL Pipeline? You can't tax strategic oil. Why would we do that? Think about that. You've got to start thinking about how you're going to negotiate. I think Trudeau, he got blown off. He got 15 minutes with the president. You know, the Prime Minister of England, she got 4 hours, and the Japanese guy got 2 days in a golf lesson. I don't think he did very well there. It's, you know, I look at the negotiation going on. It's sort of, you know, Godzilla versus Bambi, and I think Trudeau's Bambi. That's the problem. He's going to get squashed. I'm worried about it, but I'll do a better job for you, trust me.
Hi, Kevin. Thank you for this. First, you've answered both of my initial questions within the first 10 minutes of being here. That was on carbon tax and immigration. My question now is, you touched on separation with Quebec. Now, after the last election, I had heard a lot of talk out here, as ridiculous as I personally think it is, of Western separation. And that is because...
We don't want to do that. We don't.
No, but that's not the question. Electoral reform, so that the elections aren't over by the time it gets here.
Right.
Do you have any plans for that?
You know, that is an area that you've got to go to referendum on, because most people don't understand it, and you can't pull a fast one on people with that. You know, one of the lessons I learned, because my dad is now a Swiss citizen living in Geneva. I've been going over there for 40 years to see him with my son and my daughter, whoever wants to come over. When they get a contentious issue in Switzerland, in the cantons, which are like our provinces, so he lives in Vaud, and every time there's a contentious issue, like a tax increase, or a carbon tax proposal, or reform on voting rights, they take it to the people. They go vote on vote, yes, no. Both parties debate it for about 60 days. You need 35,000 signatures to get it, and they do a referendum. And the majority, 51%, rules, and you don't talk about it again for 5 years. We could use that system here in Canada on some very contentious issues, like pipelines. Why let a mayor in a city block a pipeline? I don't know if you guys know this, but we're spending $12 billion a year on Saudi oil because we can't get our oil from here to the East Coast. I don't know about you, but that makes me crazy. Why would I want to give Saudis $12 billion? They take it, buy bamboo sticks, and beat women with it. Like, what is that? I don't, you know, that's not a value I like, and I don't want to send them $12 billion. I want to keep it here. So no one's going to stop me on that pipeline. I'm going to cut a deal. We got to get that pipeline.
Hi, Kevin.
Yes.
Thanks for coming to Edmonton. Really appreciate it. My question for you is, there's always a lot of talk about what politicians are going to do about immigration. Obviously, we need a strong immigration system in Canada because we need to grow. But I don't hear a lot of politicians talking about promoting families to have more children. And one of my ideas was providing tax breaks per child. What are your thoughts on something like that?
I looked at all that. What I'd rather do is just lower everybody's taxes and not try and play that game. Like, you know, tax credit for this, if you're married you get that, income splitting, yada, yada, yada. It's breaking my head trying to figure it out. How about I just lower your taxes and everybody gets more dough in their pockets? I personally believe if the money stays in the Canadians' pocket, they don't waste a third of it like politicians do. And so it's way better to run the country as if it's a family. I mean, I don't do debt. I don't have any debt. My children don't have debt. I don't allow debt in my family because my mother scared the shit out of me about debt when I was young, and it worked. And so it makes me nervous. I don't know why as a country we want debt. I'd rather do balanced budgets and be much more focused on operating the place, frankly, like they operate Switzerland. They do not tolerate mediocrity in government, ever. They run every canton, they balance budgets. The people are wealthy. This country should be the envy of the friggin' planet. We have more stuff than anybody has. We just have really weak, mediocre politicians screwing it up for us. I really, really, really believe that. I think I can bring a much better team to work for us. People that are motivated, they care, they want to give back to their country. Successful business leaders that I'm going to press into service because when they retire, like me, they got bored. They want to go back to work. I'm loving what I'm doing. I mean, I said to Tim today when I was talking to a radio announcer about how unhappy I'm with politicians, there are countries that would shoot me for the things I say. But I'm in Canada, and I get to say them. And I don't want to tolerate mediocrity. I want to fix it. So I'm going to use my social media platform to shine the light on mediocrity in government at the municipal, at the provincial, at the federal level. And somebody said, oh, what does that mean? Well, I'll tell you what it means. When I started my open letter campaign to Kathleen Wynne in Ontario, she was at 46% in the polls. She's at 16 after 4 letters. And I'm just getting going.
Hi, Kevin. I really liked everything you said so far about economic reform. I liked your initial video launching your campaign talking about taking a spatula to government. I think that was great. One of the issues I haven't heard...
I got a lot of crap for that, I have to tell you.
I thought that was great, but one of the issues that I haven't heard you talk a lot about that's important to me is firearms reform. Right now, law-abiding Canadians are treated worse than sex offenders. And
Yeah.
I want to know what you're going to do to help guys like me.
Okay, so let me tell you where I'm at on that. So I was a military cadet at Stansted College. I got my marksman bars. I maintained my target shooting. I'm still a damn good shot with all kinds of different ordnance. And I can take on a lot of you guys. I'm pretty good. Okay? So the problem with the act is this. I can't understand it. It's 144 pages. I can't understand it. So if I'm taking my rifle in my car and I have a valid license to the target range, and I don't have all the pieces of my license, and I have a valid license, I get a federal crime. That's how absurd it is. So number one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite it in plain English so that I understand it. I'm a collector and I'm a target shooter. You guys should know that the hunting business, excluding fishing, is $15 billion in Canada. This is a big business. So we have to have very clear laws. I'm going to take, the RCMP enforces the law, but they also are writing the law. Let's change that and bring it back into caucus and into the cabinet so that we write the laws, they enforce them. So I would rather have a cleanup here of people understanding how this works, because you can get in a lot of trouble, as you suggested, by just reaching a paper mistake. And, you know, that's not right for a law-abiding collector or hunter. That doesn't make sense to me, or a target shooter like I am. So that's number one. You know, the issues around handguns, I mean, people have approached me with ideas like, I want to shoot a deer with a handgun. I'm not cool with that. I'm not cool with that. And you know, a 5-round clip, if you can't hit the animal with 5 rounds, you gotta come back to me at the target range, because you're a lousy shot. So I don't know why you need a bigger clip than that. So there's some people talk to me, what about silencers? Well, if you're a target shooter like me, putting a silencer on a rifle changes the harmonics of the barrel. You would never do that. And if you're a hunter, you'd never slow the round down. So I don't know what the hell you need the silencer for. I mean, so I'm not okay with that. So there's some things I want to leave in place, but am I going to clean up the act? Absolutely. You'll be able to read it as soon as I get there, because I can't read it. I mean, these things are, I don't know who the hell wrote that thing. I mean, I can't read it.
Next question. Do we have our mic somewhere? We'll just let you pick something. Yeah.
I'd just like to know what your take is on companies like Bombardier and all the money they pay from us.
Oh, you're throwing me red meat. You're throwing me red meat. Be careful. Do not feed the dog. Okay, so here's the. Let me be serious about Bombardier. So, for 17 years, this company has been screwing taxpayers in Canada for a couple of reasons. I don't want to get technical, but it has a dual voting class share. So it's not $1, one vote. What happens is a small number of shareholders make promises that they never have to keep because there's no way you can get rid of them. So there's a strategic reason you want to support the aerospace industry because other countries do it, okay? But let's say Bombardier, they just screwed the Quebec government out of $1 billion, and they just screwed Trudeau out of $300 million because he's never done a deal like this. He doesn't know what he's doing. But the way to do a deal with those guys that makes sense for all of us. So if somebody said to me, hey, Kevin, do you want to invest in Bombardier with your own dough? Because I consider taxpayers' dough my dough, okay? I understand why we'd want to guarantee a production run, because if you're a sovereign buying 18 or 24 aircraft, you got to know it's backed by the government. They're not going to go bankrupt. That's what Brazil does. That's what many countries do. But you don't have to do a stupid deal. So the company comes to me and says, okay, Mr. O'Leary, your Prime Minister, I need $2 billion. No problem. I'm going to give you a market deal. I'll give you, let's talk about $1 billion. We'll start with $1 billion. I'll give you $333 million of equity at today's price, but because it's a large block, I want a 10% discount because I'm a buyer, okay? Bang. Number two, I'll lend you $333 million of mezzanine debt, maybe between 7 and 9%. I'll do that for 36 months. In other words, the only reason you lend these guys money is they're going to have some cash flow at some point. They got to pay the mezz back, right? That's profitable debt. I would personally invest on that deal. And then if you want some long-term guaranteed debt from the government, I'm liking it at 6% for 10 years, okay? But there's one provision. I'm sending in a team of private equity people, either from Caisse Dépôt, which should get the first licks at it because they're a large private equity firm of world-class PE guys. These are guys I know that do this all around the world. They deploy Caisse Dépôt capital in private equity deals. I want them to go in, look at the workflows, meet the management, assess the company, okay? And then I'd like to leave a little bit of the deal for maybe other pension plans in Alberta, some in Quebec if they want, some in Ontario, some in BC, because it's for everybody in Canada, everybody gets a piece of the deal. But for our money, our taxpayer money, I'm putting a guy on the board. There'll be no covenants on when we want to exit. We get to sell our stock, sell our debt, sell our long-term mezz or long-term debt anytime we want. I'm going to make us money. But there's one provision. No dual voting class share. We are going to reconstitute the board based on equity and debt ownership. Now, the company is going to be really pissed. But they haven't met moi. I'll negotiate the deal. I will personally negotiate that deal. But we're going to work with a private equity firm that's Canadian. They're going to do the heavy lifting. We're going to slide on right beside them on a sidecar deal. We will not pay fees. We are the Canadian taxpayer. And our value to the company is that guarantor makes them market savvy all around the world. And if I have to wax the management, I'm okay with that too. But I want Canada to be strong in aerospace because I want to house my drone program there. I want to hire 150 engineers and put them in there with a private contract to maintain Global Hawks that we're going to modify for our borders and fly and save a lot of money. A lot of money. But I want a strong aerospace. Now, if they want to talk to me, they should start talking to me now because I'm coming into town in 24 months. Let's be friends. Either we're special friends or you're not my friend. You got to pick one.
Kevin, thanks for being with us tonight. You touched on something I think is a little bit of a sore spot for Albertans. We talked about equalization payments, and I wanted to ask your opinion on how Justin Trudeau handled the things with the Montreal mayors and them talking with Kennedy's pipeline. And then I ask you to comment.
Yeah. Okay, so the Mayor of Montreal has caused a lot of havoc for me and you and the whole country with pushing back on this particular project, because I got to get a pipeline to stop, so we can stop the $12 billion waste to Venezuela and Saudi oil come to the St. Lawrence. That's insane. We need, remember Pierre Trudeau, some of you are old enough in this room to remember the energy policy, which was a disaster. I don't want an energy policy, I want an energy strategy. And I'd like each province to have the lowest cost energy they can get. So that means we've got to lift the moratorium, for example, in New Brunswick, on nat gas. We're going to use the new advanced extraction technologies to extract gas out of there. But for here, the key is when you're doing a deal, when you're trying to get a pipeline deal done, and let me give you the numbers. As you know, I'm a numbers guy, I keep saying that. We got $129 billion of infrastructure, nat gas pipeline, hydro projects tied up in courts in this country, stymied by a small group of people that are stopping the benefit of the rest of us. This is worth $8 billion of economic activity each year. This is a big heartache for me. So when you meet a guy like the Mayor of Montreal, the analogy I use in getting deals done is you don't want to watch the sausage being made, you just want to eat the sausage. And so what I'm really good at is finding out what is it going to take to get a deal done, because we got to get these deals done. You have to give a little bit sometimes. Sometimes it feels like you gave too much, but it's way better than not getting the deal done. We're going to have to figure out a way to get that pipeline built and make everybody along the route happy. This is an area that I'll be very hands-on in. Now, you have to make an assessment when you elect a leader. Who is going to best serve you and who has a good track record of executional excellence? Because these projects are complicated. They're very hard to get done. And ultimately, you're negotiating some very difficult deals and understandings with all different, diverse interests. But that actually is what I do. That's what I do all day long. And now I want to do it for my country. So I have to bring a team in place. It's going to be an ugly deal. That's going to be an ugly deal. Getting that pipeline east is going to be nasty, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And sometimes you'll be saying, wow, you gave too much to this guy or that guy, or this group or that group. No, it's what I had to do to get it done. But I want to see that oil flowing. The minute we shut off, imagine $12 billion a year going to foreigners, and we're Canada? How? Okay, enough said. Enough said.
Okay, so we've been having this great dialogue for well over an hour. I just want to check with our folks to see how many more questions we can do. And then, where do we have our people? Do we have some people over there? There's no people. We're going to keep going.
Yeah, I want to party with you guys too tonight. Let's have a couple of drinks together at some
Good point.
point.
After this, we have a hospitality suite. So please come over there. I think it's like at 8 o'clock. And Kevin will obviously be there. Some opportunity.
I will be there drinking.
And you'll be drinking. And you have an opportunity to take some pictures as well. So next question.
Hi. I just have a question. What's your plan on reducing the national debt? And for example, would you be following the footsteps of the Trudeau government in, for example, selling off the nation's gold reserves? Would your plan include something like that?
No. We're not selling anything. Like, why are we doing that? Are you kidding? That's like sawing off your leg. The deal is you've got to start, there's two ways to get rid of debt. You either have to grow revenues or cut costs or both. The answer is both. The reason we're building debt in this dramatic way is that, and this is not just unique to Canada, what happens and why there's an unrest in France and in Switzerland and in Colombia and in Britain and certainly in the United States is when GDP growth stalls, people realize their lives are worse off than they were in previous times, particularly young people who how they see it manifest in the fact they can't get a job. And so what's changed in the world is people like you realize you have to bring some executional talent into government to actually do stuff, because politicians, career politicians, they're good people, but they've never run a business. Most of them can't read a balance sheet. I mean, this does not mean they're bad people. It's just they haven't done this before. And now countries are starting to say, well, who can I get to operate with more efficiency? So in a budget situation, the better strategy is we're not going to eliminate deficits overnight. What we're going to do is reduce taxes, which leaves more capital in the economy, governed by individual decisions every day that are rational ones. You people don't piss your money away. You don't buy stuff you don't need. I mean, maybe some of you do because you're a 21-year-old girl buying slippers or something, you know. But at the end of the day, you're rational about how you actually, I tell to my son all the time, Trevor, can you afford that? Can you afford that? How are you going to pay for it? I'm not paying for it. You're going to have to pay for it. He goes, We should run the country that way. So you do a combination of really trying to balance leaving more in the economy where rational decisions grow the economy. I'm trying to get to 3%. It's going to be hell on earth to get there. It's not going to be easy. We're going to have to expand our trade relationships outside of the U.S. We've got to get into India. We've got to get to China. We've got to have a really strong deal with the UK. We've got to sell to, all the European countries. We're 78% US. We got to get down to 50. We've got a lot of work ahead of us here, but we can do it. It's not impossible. I keep looking at the country. I keep looking at Switzerland. I keep looking at Canada saying, what's the difference between us and them? It's management. It's executional skills. There are no incompetent Swiss politicians because the people fire them. Why don't we do the same thing? Why not? We can do it. We can bring great people into provincial and federal roles and watch slowly what happens. Things get a lot better. It's never been done before in Canada. Have you ever met anybody that's making promises like this that's actually done it before? I don't recall. I'm getting a lot of grief for not being a politician. I don't care. You're going to make your decision. And by the way, we've only got 30 days left. So if you haven't bought a membership and your neighbor hasn't invested $15 in me, get them to do it. It's the best $15 you've ever invested.
Keep going until they kick us out. So here are more questions. Where's the mic?
Hello. I'm just wondering what happened to your YouTube channel.
A YouTube channel?
It's closed. It's shut down.
No, that's not possible. Are you kidding? I've got thousands of videos up on that. Maybe I'll look into it, but I've got my whole life on that thing.
I know. I'm just been watching it.
I'll check that out for you.
I'd just like to add to my wife's question there. One was on the criminal system in Canada.
On the what?
Criminal system?
Oh, the challenge we have now is the debate going on of imposing fixed term. The better thing to do is to leave that as a stick and ask judges to impose, fair penalties, because I think people are starting to feel that the criminals are getting a better deal than the victims these days. And that's a tonality decision by judges, and I would rather appeal to them to sharpen up a little bit and show respect to victims in this country, as opposed to forcing me to set limits on these terms, because that's an onerous challenge too. But that's a tone in the judicial system. That's a tone. You basically ask judges, listen, the people of the country aren't loving it. They're not happy. And they want to see criminals pay the price, particularly on violent crimes. And I think it's swaying a little bit because the tone I'm feeling in Canada now is the victims aren't feeling good. They're feeling the criminals are getting a better deal. That's a tonality thing. I'll work on that. But my biggest challenge, boys, is to get this economy going. It's a problem. It's a problem.
Next question.
Hi, Kevin. I just wanted to ask about kind of the carbon taxes and what you want to implement to kind of further the technology behind carbon capture and whatnot. I know, I don't know if you know about the Northwest Redwater Partnership in Gibbons.
Yeah.
There's a refinery there.
Yeah.
So they are capturing over 1.2 million tons of carbon a year. And the NDP government is not funding their phase 2, which I don't understand, because that's kind of the premise of what they want
Well,
to do.
it's provincial governments behaving badly. And I plan on running a more cooperative relationship between the federal government and the provinces. I'll be visiting all of the premiers and asking them to commit to my 3% growth strategy. And anything that retards 3% growth, they won't be my friend. And that's, you can be my friend or not my friend. And I think that's the role of federal government, is to provide some guidance and goals for the whole country. I haven't met a Canadian yet that's told me, no, I don't want to grow at 3%. No, I don't want a job. No, I don't want my country to be competitive. Not one person has told me that. So when I meet a premier that's doing something that is, for example, imposing a carbon tax in BC, let's just look at that province for a minute. Listen, I think she's fine. She made a promise to the people of BC, and she said, this will be tax neutral. I'm going to impose a carbon tax, but give it back to you each year. And she did. She kept her word in 2013. But like the sly fox she is, she didn't, as the cash kept increasing, she wasn't increasing the give back on the tax. Now she's going to scoop 300 plus million as a cash grab into the government. It's not a neutral carbon tax. Not cool. Going to be getting a letter.
Do you mind if I ask one more question?
Sure.
I want to know, like, with oil retention, what do you figure is a good way of going about it?
About what?
With oil retention, keeping our oil here, refining it, and then selling it off, instead of shipping it to the States, then refining it, and then selling it.
No, I want to sell as much oil to everybody as I can. Like at world prices. I don't want the discount that it's landlocked. No, we're building pipelines and we're going to go around the world and we're open for business big time. We're going to be the envy of the world in terms of energy stability. You want to do business with us. We're stable, and energy independence. I don't want to buy energy from anybody, anywhere. This country has all the energy it needs. It just doesn't have its distribution worked out. Energy strategy. But natural resources and energy is how we're going to make money. That's how we're going to make money. Even in down times and up times, we're going to be much smarter about this. But we're not. We're building pipelines in every direction I can figure out.
Time for maybe two more quick ones.
Thank you for coming. I know hundreds of people have been laid off, and I guess we've talked about pipelines and everything. Exploration, completions, facilities, lease building, it's all down. So in Alberta, that's huge for us. What are you going to do to help Alberta and our oil and gas economy?
Well, what should have happened here, which was I mean, you guys must have woke up with a lampshade on your heads after that election. Like, I don't know what happened, but that was really bad. And what should have occurred is we should have immediately reduced royalties and accelerate capital cost allowance to keep capital coming into Alberta during the down period, with the understanding, you go to the top 6 companies, you tell the CEO, I don't want you laying off anybody for the next 36 months. And I'm going to help you as a government by reducing royalties on your output. And I'm going to tell foreign capital allocations and sovereign funds they get an accelerated capital cost allowance. So we increase allocations from 2.8% to maybe 3.2. I talked earlier about the billions that are floating around the world that want to be invested. With the understanding that these people that you agreed to, you're going to be ratcheting up those royalty rates to get it back when oil's back above 65. You're basically banking to keep people employed because these are valuable employees that are highly trained, and you don't want them moving back east or leaving the country or whatever they're doing. Instead, we've lost 200,000 of them, which is crazy. That's the definition of good leadership versus incompetent leadership. You have incompetent leadership. We have to get rid of incompetent leadership. I know the words are harsh, but it's a fact. And so next time that happens, you'll be Imagine Every other premier before her went to the government, the federal government, said, I need help. I don't think she went there for 90 days. She went to New York and told everybody in the world not to invest in Alberta, which is why all these jobs were lost. I blame her. I specifically blame her.
Question on the side somewhere.
Hi, Kevin. I'd just like to hear your views on foreign policy.
On foreign policy?
Yeah, particularly we're being challenged about the way the NATO alliance and our funding of that. Also around the UN and all the money we give them. Their effectiveness of that money.
Well, we have big problems because we cannot do 2% of GDP at 0.7% GDP growth. We can't afford it. Not possible. We're at 0.9 right now. We're doing $20 billion a year, maintaining our military men and women in both warrior status, which they're great, and peacekeepers, which they're great. But we have a $5 billion procurement budget, which is woeful for what our NATO commitment is. I don't want to get into the, I got my hands dirty in this file last month, and I dug into some of the commitments we're trying to negotiate on F-18 or F-35. But let me explain something about those big commitments. When you buy an aircraft for $109 million US, and then commit to 26 years of maintenance for another $250 million per aircraft, and you don't have 50% of those dollars staying in Canada, you're making a big mistake. So when the Israelis buy F-35s, they have a deal, and this is from my own sources in the US, where they do not sell the F-35 with the stealth box. I don't want to get too technical, but that's a very advanced aircraft that has very advanced stealth technology in it that only Americans keep. When they sell the 35, they take out the black box. The Israeli deal, the Israelis got to develop their own stealth box and put it in the aircraft and kept a large portion of the maintenance in Israel. And then when we start talking about it with our current government, with Trudeau, he's not getting any maintenance, he's not getting any allocation to stealth technology. What are we, chopped liver up here? We are the largest partner of the United States with the longest friendly border on earth. Trudeau is a horrible negotiator. His caucus is the definition of mediocrity. Yes, it's diverse, but no competence. This is the kind of stuff we're not doing anymore. So, first of all, we can't do 2% GDP unless we get to 3% GDP growth. We cannot do it. So we're not going to make our NATO commitments unless we grow the economy. It's just plain math. But the way we're spending money in the military, we could be way better. Way, way, way better. And we will be. Now, I don't want to tie you guys up forever. We're getting into some minutiae here, but I'm hoping you're getting the feeling that I mean business. That's the whole idea. We're going to grow the economy, focus on jobs, and eliminate mediocrity and incompetence from government as fast as I can. That's the plan. I need your help. Buy a membership. Get every neighbor you've got to buy one. Vote for me on the 27th. And then the march, the Trudeau countdown begins. Thank you very much.
Here and those people watching online and everything, thank you for doing this. I know you took a lot of flack for taking the stand that you did, but we appreciate the fact that we got into some real dialogue here and got into some details here. And thank you for doing this.
I appreciate it. Let's have a drink.